right, so let me restart then. So when you present your work, as I just said, I am a teacher, an instructor, right? I explain to students, I stand in front of them. One of the barriers is language that you try to overcome. The other barrier is the knowledge that you're going to convey to others. You need to have enough knowledge, enough ways of a kind of convincing your audience that you know well enough so that they will listen to you. So overcoming these two is your main two challenges. What I'm going to do is give you tips and give you some advices, but if not, you don't stand and you don't practice more and have a lot of experience in what you're going to say, it's not going to get better. You're not going to go from zero to being a professional presenter, which I think presenting your work, you need some kind of a proficiency. So if you're not going to practice with it, you're not going to be convincing. When I'm teaching for the first time and the material is still a little bit new, when I compare that to teaching the same course after 10 times, it's much different. The confidence, the way you have this eye-to-eye contact with the students. I don't need to look at each slide and see my notes and all that. I kind of know exactly what I'm going to say, what type of questions they're going to have, and how I'm going to respond to them. Right? So let's start with the presentation. So that's part of my course. I teach research and development. So I teach students how to approach research in a more of a technology method. So how to approach it. One of the things is presenting the research at the end, but it's not the main thing in the course. That's just part of it. And I'm using actually the same presentation that I'm using for my class. So presenting your finding to an audience. Presenting a study, right? It's important. Every research, you need to share it with your peers. How you're going to share it, you have to go to either conferences, you need to present it in various environments, right? That's what you're all shared. You want to have this experience in presenting, knowing what to say, how to, I think you mentioned, how to make the audience listen to you. That's very, very important. That's my challenge, everyday challenge. How will I capture my students' attention? They might sit and after 10 minutes, you know, like, okay, doze about their breakfast and their lunch. And believe it or not, even if I am attending a conference and after 15 minutes of people talking, you doze off. So what keeps this attention? You have to engage them all the time. So after a few slides of me talking, I pop up something like an attention quiz or a reading quiz or an activity. You need to capture that every few minutes. Otherwise, you lose this attention. So presenting our findings. So look at the figure here. Can you see that? Yes. So this is me, right? And this is you. So by having a visual way of presenting your work, it is important, right? Something to capture. So how are you going to put, depending on your research, how are you going to put it in a visually matter? So for example, if I'm teaching or if I'm presenting the relationship between trees and the environment. So you have variables, right? So you kind of build a graph and you have data. The data, if you put the data and list the data, they will not understand, but you need to put that, for example, just as an example, you need to put it in a graph. If you put the graph, then they will understand, right? The visual effect. This visual effect is very important. Identify the main points. What you want to say in this presentation. What are you going to focus on? So before you are ready to present, you have to have a plan. One of the plans is, okay, I'm going to prepare my presentation. What are you going to say? So make the points very, very succinct, to the point. I need to lay out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's very important as well. Keep that your first priority. And then rank your topics. 3 to 4 points of your research, right? Considering now how much time do you have for the presentation. If you are given 5 minutes, it's different than if you're given 30 minutes, obviously, right? If you're given 30 minutes, you'll have plenty of time. You can go into the detail. You can spend per slide 5 minutes, you're fine. But if you have very short time to present your work, then you have to make it very, very succinct. And depending on that, plan your slides. Provide background. You need to start with a, similarly, when you start a textbook, any book will have an introduction, right? You start by knowing what is the background. You have probably done some kind of literature review at any point of this research. So we need to know, you need to give this background in the beginning. This was done. You don't need to give the references and say this and this or who said what, because people will not remember all the names, but the finding of the research. The main points of what was done previously needs to be also mentioned. Tell a story. Right, I started here my conversation by telling you a story of my family, of being an immigrant and all that. This relationship, this personal relationship, or that I asked you to introduce yourself, this is very important to keep this audience listening to you. So think about what you're going to say. This also is part of the planning. Like, what story will I share? What will I say? What do you want to say? It can be personal. If you don't feel confident saying something personal, come up with a different story. But you need to have this connection. And remember, every few minutes, you need to relive or revive this attention. So I want to do the same, right? I've been talking now for 5 minutes, so I will kind of break it now and maybe ask someone to tell me, what do you remember from your literature review? The one thing you remember from your literature review that you will focus on when presenting. And I'm just going to go arbitrary. Let's start with you. One thing.
Okay.
Just one thing in 1 minute.
Should I be specific, because it'll be
Very
about...
specific. One thing from the literature review in 1 minute.
So I found out that 3 HOX genes, UBX, ABDA, ABDB genes are important in development of the heart, especially focused on the alveolar muscles that I'm focused on. Yeah.
Perfect. So when you are telling a story now, you have to make sure that the audience understand it is related to the audience. So if you're given a very specific story, or you're kind of making that connection, if your audience are, for example, clients, you are proposing something, you want their money, they're not going to understand what you just said. So the audience needs to know, if this is very specific, it needs to be someone that is in your field.
Okay.
Right? So if it's not in the field, then you need to make it a very general kind of story. So let's start something general, because I don't know your kind of backgrounds. So one literature review that you remember, a little bit general. What do you think? Nothing comes in your head from your literature review?
Yes.
Okay, I'll ask you.
Not much is done about, like, my field is dendrochronology, so not much is done in terms of the dendrochronology in the tropics, because there's an assumption that tropical trees don't form annual rings, because you need those annual rings in order for you to understand how trees have been responding to like changes in precipitation, changes in temperature, because those factors affect how trees grow. So from my literature, I found out that there's actually a good number of research that has been done so far. And even though it's not really inclined towards my species of interest, but still there's a rising number of research in terms of.
So there's not a lot of research in particularly into the specific trees related to environment. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, all right. 1 minute, one literature review.
Well, so the global higher education system after COVID especially is facing challenges with meeting the demands of students. So we know much about the United States and Canada. The Almanac report have it that high school students are not interested in coming to universities because they don't see, according to the report, they don't find any meaningful demand like going to the universities, whilst even after high school, they can get any job. And so we know that for United States and Canada, but when you come to the African continent, what we know about mostly is
1 minute.
okay.
We've been
Sorry.
talking for more than 1 minute.
So in the African continent, we don't know much about what is happening within the students' student demands and the meetings of universities in Africa. Few is known about South Africa, but especially
So
Ghana.
again, there's not a lot of research in that.
Yes, especially in Ghana.
Okay, all right, interesting. I did not know that we are missing a lot of literature review in your areas. That's something to, I don't know, look or dig deep into that. Okay, literature review. Presenting your finding now. Okay, so I need a literature review. I'm sure if you have a PhD, you have already completed the master's, you have some kind of an hypothesis, right? A methodology done through a master's. And I don't know if is that your first semester master's or your final semester, but this is the order in which most research are done, right? You need to have literature review, you need to have some kind of hypothesis, methodology, like what you did. Findings is the results, okay? What did you find, when you did what you did, right? And you need to share that with your audience. So first of all, establish work as professional, right? It is the ethical and the thoughtfulness of how you will present your work is important. You mentioned literature. I made you all kind of mention a little bit about literature review, right? But you, in a presentation, you will need to think a little bit deeper. Okay, you had only 1 minute to share your thoughts. You will have maybe 10 minutes to share your literature review. So which one are you going to find? You cannot say that there's no literature review. You have to find a literature review somehow related to your research to kind of share that. The other part is methodology. What did you do? What did you do? You need to also be very succinct and very, very to the point. What you research, literature review, what you did, and your findings. All of these need to be to the point. Don't spend a lot of time doing all that. What people will mainly focus on listening to your work is mainly your results and your conclusion. So the methodology is important, but okay, after you did what you did, what are your findings? Because people would take that finding and continue on it or build on it in their research. So even when you read literature, when you read other people's paper, what do? You open the paper, right? You probably maybe skip through their literature review and go straight to the conclusion or to the abstract. What did they find in this research? So you will do the same. You need to focus on what is important about your research. Discuss data collection. It is important that you mention a few details like what, how, who are the participants, what are the demographics? You know, these little things also need to be mentioned in your presentation, even though you're not going to go into detail, but you need to mention some findings after the data collection, and hypothesis that maybe you have revisited. Maybe you started with a hypothesis, and then after you start the research, you found out, I need to revisit my hypothesis. So if that happens, you need to mention that as well. Visual aids. We did talk about visual aid, right? That you need something that people will kind of look at. One of the main things when I ask my students to kind of present their, for example, I ask them to do posters, right? They will have a lot of wordings. People will not read what is out there. The more the visual effect, graphs, the less the wording, the better people will keep the attention in your presentation. So this is already maximum. Like if you have more than this, people will lose their interest. They're going to simply think about something else. So remember, graphs, figures, illustrations are best, right? A photo talks better than a million words. Like you just have one photo and it can sum a lot of the things that you want to say yourself. And some practical tips. Your vocal tone and body language, that's something that comes with practice. I cannot tell you like from day one, it's hard to stand here and have an audience that you talk to. It's not easy. If you are a shy person, especially, it's very challenging. If I ask any of you to come here now for a minute to present, you will feel that stress. It's a tension that just builds up. As soon as you leave your chair from being an audience and come here and being a presenter, the stress will elevate. So it's only comes with practice. The more you do it, the more confident you will get. Another thing, dress appropriately. Of course, we come from a culture that a professor needs to wear suits all the time. When I came to the United States and people wear casual, if I talk on a Zoom meeting with other professionals, they will always comment, like if they're friends, why aren't you dressed in a suit and for a man in a tie and all that? So depending on the culture where you're presenting, sometimes you need to ask, what is the dress code? Do I wear this or do I wear casual? Is that okay or it's not okay? Make sure, because it does leave an impression. I did not think of dressing like that. Coming here will give you a bad impression because the culture here allows that. But if I go and travel overseas and I will give a presentation, I will dress in a suit professionally, addressing to that culture. Before going to the class activity, one last thing. People, if you are exploring what is the best way to do a presentation, you will hear a lot of things and a lot of people will tell you. If you just go online and they will tell you tons of things. Some things will work for you, some things will not work for you. Some say if you walk a lot, that takes the attention away. So for myself, I cannot stay still. I have to walk and communicate that way. So I found that it does not give that bad impact. So I'm okay, I'm confident by walking. For you, you can explore things and try them and test them out. Which one will work better? And you try it. You can get your family members and tell them, okay, I'll tell you a story. Please sit down and give it a test and see what will make you more confident, what will keep their attention the longer, and then you'll find out what works. All right, so I will ask you next we'll have a activity, because whatever I said is just, it's nice, but it's theoretical. So let's have an activity now. Do we still have time?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I want you to write down what do you want to present, and I'll give you 2 minutes. 2 minutes, you can talk about, probably I have it here as a daily activity just to make it more casual. But if you want to do it about your research, that's fine too. So I want you to see what you're going to say. You have only 2 minutes and I'll time you. So take a few minutes to think about it, and then we're gonna have that activity. You want to do the activity too, Khaled?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
You're thinking, okay.
Oh, I have many daily activities. Which one should I choose?
And if you look at this, the handout that I gave you also has some aid out. If you want to take a look, like rank your topics, tell a story, all this, what I just said, it's just in more details. So you can use that as well as a guide. And I did not talk about publishing an article because you said we're not going to cover that today. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to start? Okay.
I don't know. It is.
Now you will come here.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
How
Now-
many minutes are we talking?
You have 2 minutes, and maybe can somebody time it? Sure. Now I want you, while someone is presenting, I want you to think of what is the best thing they did that kind of help or will help you. And what is one thing that you can advise them? Like, what is the one thing that you think they need to improve? So one critiquing and one kind of compliment. All right, okay, let's start. Tell him when he's ready.
It's fine. Okay,
Can I
go ahead.
start?
Yes.
Start.
Talking about daily activities, I enjoy reading books. And I believe reading books gives you the chance to explore the world. As a friend of mine, a novelist, we were talking lately about writing a book together. And he asked me if we can build up on the literature of Asian poetry of Persian or Persia. So I suggested a book called Conference of the Birds. And today he posted a post on his Facebook. We finally finished reading it. It gave us a new view of looking at Sufism and Islam and the similarities of the religious similarities and how we can go above and beyond of who we are and how we think and how we can overcome. Potentially that the book is mostly talking about 7 valleys of wisdom through which a bird flies over and teaches the rest of the birds on how to overcome challenges when you go through each valley. So I strongly believe, and I do this almost, I may not say every day, but at least 3 days a week. I have my writing and reading days blocked out that I do only read and write. So, and I have the person I am standing today, I am very different than the one I was probably 10 years ago. So to conclude, read books if you want to live a life that nobody else would live being here in a room or in a country. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you. Perfect timing. All right, so I will compliment one thing. He made the connection. He told his story. I did feel that I want to listen more. If we had more time, I would listen. If he speaks for another half an hour, I think I will listen to all the stories about the books that he read, because he made that connection. So you felt somehow that you were interested. He got your attention. And I'll let you, Kriti, what do you think you can give Khalid as an advice?
So, I mean, the one thing I found that was like, if it's a research, oriented presentation, then I would say that it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm biased towards hypothesis-driven research. So that's why I felt that somehow the hypothesis here was missing. So if it's just a general presentation to, address audience, then it was like really catchy and had a nice takeaway.
Right, right. So if that's related to research, you should have a hypothesis. But we didn't ask for research. We said either research or daily activity.
Yeah.
So we're good, Khalid, I think.
Yeah.
Anybody else wants to critique Khalid?
Ebenezer, come on.
I enjoy
You gotta
it.
tell me something.
I
You have
enjoy
a
it.
ton of
Like
ideas.
what I
No,
saw.
he started with an introduction, gave you a background, went to what he did, and then he made sure he concluded what he said. That's very important. The sequence that he did was very impressive. The one thing that I might kind of advise is, and I have the same problem, is the language. The missing of the see, the importance of selecting the exact vocabulary is something that we all, as not English native speaking people, lack. It's just part of it. So that's my only critique. All right, so I'll start with you now. You have 2 minutes, and can somebody take her phone, or
I can keep the timer,
keep-
that's okay.
Oh, that's even better. Yeah.
Okay, hello everybody. Today I'll be talking about fruit flies. So I think you all might have seen fruit flies around you in your homes, right? Especially the summer is approaching. But the fruit flies here I'm referring to is they can be a beneficial or a useful tool for research. So I work with fruit flies on a daily basis, which means that involves growing the fruit flies and making food for them, and also observing them under the microscope. I know they can be very annoying because we have seen them as a pest, right? Household pest as compared to a lab research model organism. right? So I say that Drosophila or fruit fly is a good model organism because, interestingly, when compared to humans as well as the fruit flies, the genome or the genes are conserved, which means some of the genes that are in us are also present in the fruit flies. So here the conclusion is that fruit flies have been studied for many years, and there are at least 6 Nobel Prizes, on fruit flies, people who have done research on fruit flies. So I would say that it's an excellent model organism to understand a lot of human and mammalian genes, as well as to design therapeutics and test the therapeutics on the fruit fly as well.
Thank you. What was the time? Did you do exact timing?
I have 12 seconds left.
12 seconds. Okay. All right. So still good timing. Anybody wants to give a compliment
Critique.
or critique? Alice, you want to do a critique?
I don't know, but I just felt that the information she provided at the end, I wanted to hear it first because she started with flies and then fruit flies, but okay, we know them as pests, but what do you do in the lab with it? But at the end, she cleared it after saying in conclusion.
Right.
So I would have wanted this to be in the beginning, that fruit flies are used in the labs for this purpose.
This connection was missing in the
That
beginning.
particular connection, but I was thinking that what do you need to do? But at the end, she answered that question.
Perfect. That's
But it
a
was
very
like-
good advice. Yes.
Yeah.
So that connection, people will want to know in the beginning, why are you telling us?
Why this topic?
Why should I listen?
Yeah.
Similar to an abstract of a paper, right? It tells you what they did and what the finding is. If you want to listen more, you're going to read the paper. Timing wise was perfect, confident. We still have the language barrier, even though,
Yeah.
you speak very good English, but it shows. So the more practice with your words, the better it will become. Right?
He's next.
I actually wanted to. make
You
a
want to
comment on
critique
that.
her?
Yeah. And also, like, you need to understand your audience as well, like the people you're talking to, like you're presenting to. So if the people are not really in your field, then you need to break down the terminology. So
Right.
I think you used a certain terminology that I didn't get. So yeah,
Right. Right, pay attention to the audience, right? We mentioned that in our presentation, right? You need to make sure that the audience understand all the terminology you're going to use. That's very to the point critique. Anybody else? All right, let's have a timer, please.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Collins, and I'm here to present about my research. I just want to talk about my research. So I am doing dendrochronology, and dendrochronology is basically the study of tree rings to understand environmental variables. So my environmental variable of interest are temperature and precipitation. I want to understand how trees are responding to changes in temperature and precipitation. With the current climate change, we can all agree to say that trees are definitely responding differently to temperature and precipitation. So my area of interest is the tropics, to be precise, Zambia around a forest called AEL, African Explosives Limited. It's an explosive plant, and the forest is around that area. The main reason they preserve that forest is not because they are just interested in sustainability or forest reserve, but because those trees can act as a buffer in an event that an explosion was to happen in that place. So meaning this area is not really affected by humans, so it's protected from the surrounding communities. So that's why we prefer sampling in this forest, because trees tend to be ordered in that forest, and our target is to sample trees that extend as far back in time so that we can understand how those variables respond to how those trees respond to variables like precipitation and temperature. And yeah, so right now where I am, I have I'm yet to do my results. We've collected samples, but I'm yet to do my final analysis on my results. So I may not have.
Your time is up.
I may not have.
No,
results
time
for
is
you.
up. That's it. Thank you very much.
Out of the podium.
Come on. All right, so who can compliment and who can critique? Let's start with the positives.
He had a very well-established kind of a study where he mentioned the need and then the reason why
Right.
he needed to do
Right.
and the method, and then wanted to conclude with his probably prospective results, but mostly yes, it was a very well organized.
Right. Right. Anybody else wants to give a
I
compliment?
feel like he really know what he's
Right.
about.
He has
understands
the
area.
passion is
Yeah.
showing. The passion is there, and it's important that you like what you're presenting. You like your research. Of course, you're spending years of your life doing something. You better be liking it. Very nice. All right, let's have one critique.
I think what I realized was like more of a rush because he knows the thing, so he was just running like water. So you can see it really didn't make me get the whole concept. I really understood that this is the area,
Right.
but what are the content? What is he
Right.
telling me?
Right.
Because he was running so fast
Right.
that I didn't really, I wasn't able to follow
Right.
what he was saying.
Right. Right. You were talking a little bit too fast, and that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So that gave him kind of, he didn't know exactly the main points, in other words.
Yeah, it was obvious. He was trying to kind of break it down to us.
Right.
The topic is talking about, but in the process of breaking it down, there was so much information from different angles.
True.
So it was hard to put it together
Right.
within that short minute.
One of the things that because he has a presentation in a conference, from my experience, because we are so passionate about our research, so we think that everything we did should be said.
Right.
Yeah.
I should not miss a thing.
Right.
And
you're
so-
going to lose the people's attention. by
Yes,
doing that.
and you will not be able to
Finish on
complete
time.
it on time.
That's true.
So that's why Professor's one slide where she said, find out what are the two major ideas you want to tell us.
Yeah.
Like
You're
it was
not
2
going to
minutes,
have-
one idea, come with one idea, say that, okay, this is important here.
Right.
That's it.
Right, exactly. One other thing that I learned by practicing is to pause. Instead of saying, and a lot of times when you don't make that pause, you will say, this kind of stutter. If you pause for a second, it will kind of diminish as you practice. And that's one thing that I learned. I was not prepared to do that. But once I started, and when I give the lecture to students, I pause and then I continue. And that made me stop doing the stuttering. So you can try that as well. Perfect. Let's have the fourth presenter.
There you go.
You got this.
Yes.
Yes, right. Start the timer, please.
Can you start first? No.
Oh, do you want to start? Okay.
Yeah.
See, it's stressful coming up here,
Yeah.
facing the audience.
Yeah.
And the more shy you are, see how this is recorded. Put any kind of recording device before your presentation, your actual presentation, and do it and rehearse as many times as it takes until you feel this confident. Because if you do that for the first time or the second time, it's not going to be perfect. When I presented my PhD or my master's, how many times I did that, and the technology wasn't so good. It's not like now with the phone, for example. You had to get something to record it with and then watch it. The more you practice, the better you will become. All right.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'd like to talk about a topic that I find very interesting, which is how humans are influenced, like our behavior is influenced by interaction with the society. And the society could consist of the family, social media, government, every other person apart from yourself, basically. So when you're talking about this topic, a major theory that comes up is symbolic interactionism. And also when you're talking about symbolic interactionism, you have to talk about the social philosophy of George Abbott Mead is a theory that talks about the I and the me. So the me part of you is basically those behaviors that you have as a person that is influenced by the interactions you have with others. And the I part of you is like a reflex action that you do in a certain situation, regardless of what people think or what people expect you to do. The I part of you is like something you just do when something happens in a situation, and that's the I. And the me is what is influenced by what is around you. Yeah, so the major critique of this theory is that it only focuses on how people share meanings among each other, how people create meaning among one another. It's basically about interpersonal communication, not really about the general society or institutions, how communication is spread. Thank you.
Well done.
Very, very well done, because you are shy, you know, so it's the confidence that you came here and practice. It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
So I compliment you on that.
Thank you.
I'll let you critique. One critique.
One thing I realized that her ability to really think about something quick to come and present is something like it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. So I really commend her when, like you said, that we keep on doing this, it becomes part of you.
Right.
Now, like you're trying to be a fast thinker.
Right.
How do I solve it? How do I make this work? That's one thing I realized.
One other thing that I myself also was suffering from with the language barrier is when we talk fast and we have an accent, it's not clear. So the slower you talk, the more your words will become clearer and people understand better. If you speak fast, you will get the dialect or your obviously your other languages kind of mix in and it's not as clear. So that's one advice. It took me time until I learned, if I'm ready, I'll speak fast, but if I'm not, then I'll take my time. Ella, do you have any other advice?
I think it was good. She started the way.
Did you get what I said? Like, did you get something from what I
Yeah,
said? I felt like
I got the theory.
yeah,
Yeah.
interpersonal communication, interaction, and then there was this me and I.
Yeah.
Right, me and I,
Concept.
yes.
It was good.
Thank
And for me, like you lost me, like the last part, you lost.
yeah.
She
was-
was
I don't know
nervous.
if,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
She was nervous.
Yeah, bring back like
Anxiety
the same
does
thing
that.
you said, and then you just like circle.
Yeah.
You will be a great presenter. Just keep practicing. You know,
Keep
we all,
coming to
we
these
all
workshops.
started.
Mhm, yeah.
Keep coming to these workshops.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But I like the way where she brought the importance of her topic and also how she related that to how that can be useful to me,
Right.
you know.
One other thing that I liked is the positive attitude.
Mm.
She was happy.
Yeah.
You could feel this positivity. If you stand here, and I've seen presenters, oh, this is the research and I've done this. It does make a difference. The smile is important. So smile, keep smiling.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, our last presenter.
Our last presenter.
The icebreaker.
2
Okay.
minutes only, all
Oh,
right?
yeah, 2 minutes, right? It is minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ebenezer, and I want to talk about my research topic, which is about the experiences of student affairs practitioners in Ghana. The global higher education faces a challenge of meeting the demands, industrial demands, and societal demands, and more especially post-COVID student demands. And this call is placed at the doorstep of higher education student affairs practitioners. Student affairs basically helps students, practitioners help students to live well on campus, to realize their campus life after campus as well. We know much about student affairs practices in America, which is well grounded, and in Canada, part of the UK, and part of Africa. But more especially, when you talk about Africa, student affairs is not much known. The only area that is known is in South Africa, which is now growing. But then there are student affairs practitioners in Ghana. They came to the United States and they are practicing now in Ghana. So my main focus is to know what experiences they are going through, because cultures and systems are not equal. And so you expect Ghana to also have different cultures and systems. So while they are practicing there, what experiences have they been through in meeting the demands of students at the college levels? I expect that after that, my work, we get a worthwhile recommendation to help solve the situations that are coming up in Ghana and the world as well.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Oh, he actually made it earlier. He has 25 seconds.
Great.
Ooh.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's the
That's
timing.
right.
I feel like I got a lot, enough information within.
He was nervous to make sure that he doesn't pass the 2 minutes,
Yeah.
so he made it shorter. And when you practice, you put the timer and you make sure you don't take less time, because that leaves an impression as well, and you don't exceed the time. So I like the way you kind of broke down your research. You took a little bit longer time in the introduction part and less in the conclusion part. So
Okay.
spend a little bit more time on that, and maybe start giving also a clue. What are you in the beginning? Make that connection,
Okay.
and then play the story.
Okay.
I think that was the main critique. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, and what you talked about, like the critique I was given, he was not taking like breaks, like where you take your time, like
Okay.
yeah, so that you get your audience's attention.
Right. Right, but he was talking slower, so he was very, we could understand every word he
Yeah.
said. So that was
Yes.
very important as well.
Clear.
That ends my activity and my presentation. I hope I gave you any kind of new information. I hope it was beneficial at the time, and I apologize for the lateness.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
So most people talk about like telling a story. So how sometimes a story is not always that a story is going to be exciting. So some stories can be boring. So how do you make sure that, like, maybe tips that you can give to ensure that you tell a story that's going to catch your audience?